Hey everyone, this is Dawn at Buckeye Acres. Today we are going to be harvesting some more green beans and hopefully we'll have enough to pressure can a batch. So let's head to the garden and pick some green beans. So this is a quick view of our garden. We tore out some stuff to plant some more fall things we have yet to do, but here we're getting to where the green beans are. We picked a bunch last Sunday, so hopefully we can pick some more. It's kind of a rainy day, which is great since it's been so hot. So yeah, here's just some sunflowers we planted, and let's get to picking. So it started to rain a little bit and it definitely got a little heavy, so I probably went through the rows a little quicker than I should have. I'm sure I missed a few, but we still got a big old bowl, which is about what I have in the fridge right now. So we're gonna call that good and go inside before we get really soaked. Okay, so I am back inside and I have got the green beans we picked today and a gallon jar of green beans that we picked last Sunday. So they've been in the fridge in this glass jar for just over a week, and they're maybe not quite as crisp as the fresh ones, but they're still very crisp, so I think they're gonna work good. So the variety that we planted is Burpee's Tender Green. So it's a stringless variety, so I do not have to take the strings off. So I'm just gonna have to clean them and snap them into smaller pieces, and then we'll be able to can them. So here's kind of how I have things set up. I've got my beans right here, and then I cut the ends off with scissors, and these ends will go to the chickens or the compost bucket. Then I put them in here where I will wash them before I cut them into smaller pieces so that they are ready to be canned. Okay, so we just right now are taking the kitchen scissors, and you can see, let's get a better one, taking off this end and this end. So just one and then I need the other. And so now it'll be like that. And then we'll go into the other where it can get washed. Okay, now I am taking the green bean that has the ends cut off. I am rinsing it to make sure there's nothing on it, and I'll cut it into chunks. I usually cut them into 2 to 3 chunks, depending on the length of the bean. So as you can see, I got all of my green beans cut up and washed. There's about 5.5 pounds. And so I got some water heating up that I will put in the jars once I put the green beans in them. And then over here I have the jars in soapy water, so I'll give them just a wash and rinse them and keep them in hot water until I'm able to pack them. So I have a Muro pressure canner. It only has a weighted gauge. It does not have any dial gauge, which is just fine. So a note about the weighted gauge is that the recipes will tell you, most recipes say 10 pounds, but I think it's important to know your elevation. So I think 2,000 plus feet in elevation. So basically every recipe I use the 15 pound on the weighted gauge. And then, so inside here comes this thing, and you want to have this rib part down, so there's a little space between the bottom of the canner and this rack. So I am using this Ball Blue Book, and if you are new to canning, or even if you aren't, this is a great recipe book. Here's what I'm talking about, the pressure canner altitude adjustments. So you want to check that out just to make sure that you are canning at the correct weight. I just gave the jars a quick wash, and now they're sitting in very hot water. Some people boil water and put them in there. I've never had any issue with just putting them in this really hot water and taking them out, filling them with the green beans, and then putting the boiling water over top. Why it's important is so that it's not a temperature shock to the jars. Technically, you're supposed to take one out at a time, pack it with the green beans, and then put the hot water on top. I sometimes take them all out, and I've never had an issue with a jar cracking, but just beware, I guess. Well, I've got my little canning help down here. Yeah. Do you like canning? Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so I've got a jar just out of the water. Now I'll be putting the green beans in them. I'm doing the raw pack method. So you want to push them down as much as you can without crushing them. And the recipe calls for a 1-inch headspace. So here are some of the jars packed in there. Once I put the water in, you can see, but just about a 1-inch headspace. So yeah, I'm gonna put some hot water in these. So for pint jars, it's optional, but I'm gonna put a half a teaspoon of canning and pickling salt before I add the hot water. The hot water, and I'm going to fill each jar to cover the green beans and leave a 1-inch headspace. So I will fill these, and then I'll go back and check with this just to make sure. So now I'm gonna take this. If you don't have this, you can use a fork or a knife or whatever. It's kind of handy, but you don't have to have it. I'm gonna take it and go down the side and just kind of pull it in and try to get any air bubbles that are down there to come up to the top. And then just try to make sure that the water is covering the green beans, just like this. So now I'm going to wipe the rims. Just wetted my paper towel. Gonna wipe the rims down just to make sure that there's nothing on them that would make it so that the lid won't seal. So you just wanna clean them well, and then we'll put on the lid and tighten the rings on. So it depends on your lid, but so you can read the instructions, but for these ball ones, you just do finger tight. You gotta be careful about over tightening them, because that can actually cause just as many problems. Okay, here they are before I put them in the canner. I can fit 9 smooth-sided pint jars into my canner. I can't fit a jar like, here's my sourdough starter. I cannot fit a pint jar that's got sides like this in it, but I can fit 9 smooth-sided ones in there. Okay, so I've got about 2 to 3 inches of hot simmering water, or it was, in the pressure canner. And I'm going to put all of my jars in. I was wrong earlier. I can actually fit 10 smooth-sided jars in here, and I could fit 9 of those other kind of pint jars. But I've got them all situated in here. So now I'm going to put the lid on in the locked position, and then I'll turn the heat on to medium-high. So I'm actually a little newer to pressure canning. So right now I just have, it's not quite medium-high, although you can start it on there. But I just have mine on about 6, and so we're just gonna wait until some steam starts coming out of right there. Got a consistent stream of steam coming out from that. So we will let it vent steam for 10 minutes, and then I will put the weighted gauge on there. So it's been 10 minutes since it started steaming. You still, there, it's still going. The steam is obviously hot, so I use an oven mitt, and I've got it on the 15. Gonna just set it on there. And so now I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna leave it at the heat it's on. I'm gonna wait until it starts, it's gonna build pressure, and then it'll start jiggling. So at this point it's jiggling. I've already turned it down a little bit, and I'll probably have to do a little bit more. Some canner manuals say weighted gauge should jiggle 1 to 4 times a minute. This manual says at least 4 times a minute. So you kind of have to check your manual, but what you don't want is it jiggling non-stop. But make sure when you are adjusting to just do a little at a time so it doesn't shock any of the jars, and also so you don't all of a sudden have no pressure and then have to restart over with timing. But once it starts jiggling is when you can start your timer. Since the weighted gauge first started jiggling, the pint jars have been in there for 20 minutes, so now we'll just shut the burner off. It can take a little effort to get the lid off sometimes. Just make sure that when you do take it off and it comes off, that you turn the lid away from you, so that if there is any steam or just in general that it's hot, and to take precaution, it does not come up in your face and burn you.